Well, hello, people. I'm just going to wait one moment just to check the live stream has started. Fantastic. Here we go. So welcome to my weekly live stream. I'm going to be doing this every week, normally on a Wednesday. This should be a Wednesday, but yesterday I got snowed in, freak weather, or everything went wrong. But anyway, I'm here now. Today, I'm going to be showing you my technique for relicing a guitar, but very specifically, getting the relic checking. So that's the cracks that appear in the surface of old guitars that have a traditional nitrocellulose finish. Now, I've got other videos I've already made about how to get that finish on a nitrocellulose guitar. But one of the common comments that I have when people watch that video and the shorts and things I've made around it is, how can you achieve that finish on a guitar that doesn't have a nitrocellulose finish? So a modern poly, for example. Well, here I've got a polyurethane guitar. I'm going to show you how I would do the finishing on that. But first of all, my top tip for any kind of relicing you're going to do, especially for this checking, is to look up online, go in shops, find your resources. I've got a book here I'm going to show you in a moment of actual relic guitars that you are inspired by to take your influence from. So I'm not saying you're going to exactly copy everything about that relic guitar, but by being inspired by it, you can make what you're doing look realistic. My other top tip is start simple. You can get more complicated as you go along. So today I'm going to show you my process, but I'm just going to do like part of the guitar. You don't need to see the entire guitar done. You can get an idea of what's going on and how the process works. And actually, I'm doing this guitar here as part of the book I'm currently writing on customizing electric guitars, which is coming out in October 2025 or for Christmas 2025. So over on my workbench at the back. So I'm in my workshop at the moment. You can see the mess around because I've got 13 guitars on the go, all for the book. On the back there is the little setup I've got to photograph. So occasionally during the live stream, I might go over there to photograph. While I'm doing it, I might tell you some other things, some top tips about general relicing. Just before we start though, the fit for today's show is Saul Good Guitars. If you don't know Corey, go and check him out. He's one of our semi-regular hosts on the Guitar Builders Collective live stream that I run every Thursday here on YouTube. Right, so I'm just going to swap my camera to show you the book that I've got, which I think is going to be absolutely brilliant for a bit of inspiration for me. But just so you know, if you're watching in the future and not live, you probably want to skip ahead 4 or 5 minutes in order to actually see the relicing if you don't want to watch this sort of thing that's influencing me. So I'm just checking that my screen's not too fuzzy. It seems a little bit jerky, the stream, for some reason. So what I'm going to do is lower the resolution. That might help. Right, so this book is called Immortal Axes. It's by Lisa S. Johnson. It's called Guitars That Rock. Now, what is brilliant about it is Lisa has gone around the world photographing famous guitarists' guitars. So these are real guitars, real age guitars. And in it, there's some very cool guitars that are relics, that naturally relict old guitars, but they're not actually checked. They haven't got the cracking on it. Now, that could be because they're not nitro finish, but more than likely, it's just because they've worn from natural wear as opposed to the heat and cold that causes the checking on the nitro. So it's really the change in temperature that causes the nitro to finish, to crack. Now, look, I'm going to show you a few pictures here. Not all of them are necessarily that relevant. I just want to show you, this is a Jimmy Page guitar. The guitar itself doesn't really have much checking on it that you can see in the photos, but the headstock does. I don't know how well you can see this in the picture here, but the headstock here has got this checking on it. Now, what's cool that you can just about see in this photo is that the surface of the checking, the cracks, is actually raised. It's not a perfectly flat crack that goes across it. And that's something that's really important for us to think about when we get on to getting our checked finish. Let's skip along. There's some like great things in this book. This is George Harrison's guitar, and what you can see on it is the checking comes almost exactly perpendicular to the strings, which is a really common thing. I'll show you in a minute some of this bit different. It's really common, and the checking is quite hard to see. It's going to be hard to see on the camera, I think. I don't know if because of the light, I don't know how well this is going to focus, but we've got some checking here, and what it tends to be is straight lines with little loops that link it, and then over here again straight lines, little loops that link it, and it's become a bit more intense around this area where it started to crack. And I reckon that's become a bit more intense because of the wear that's been put on the cracks that are already forming there from the way George Harrison plays. It's a great book. I love books for a bit of inspiration. So here we've got there's actually a whole section in here about Iron Maiden, Steve Harris's bass. This is Yannick Ayres, and this is a crazy guitar that apparently when they play the Iron Maiden song at the end of most sets, I think this is how they always end, he throws this guitar around and really smashes it up, or whatever guitar he happens to have at the time. But this seems to be, according to the text, the one that he uses the most. And what you'll notice on here is the checking is the other way to what I just showed you. It goes along parallel with the strings. It's really dark. So what this is the thickness of the nitro. The cracks go all the way through the nitro finish. You can see here where the actual body of the guitar is underneath, and that's what makes the cracks look so thick. So I'm going to give you some tips later on for making your cracks look like that. You can see they're really straight, or not straight, but they're really mainly going in one direction here. But again, where the area is more worn, where he's been leaning his hand more, you get some more going slightly in the other direction, a bit more intense or closely checked stuff. So that's a good observation to have, that the checking kind of becomes more intense or more concentrated in those areas. Right, I've got a few other examples just to show you, and then we got on with my technique. I don't want to make this video too long. Johnny Cash, this is an electric guitar, it's an acoustic guitar, but wow, like Johnny Cash. So it's got checking on it, which, let's see if we can get this into focus. Sometimes my tattoos have a little advantage of being something the camera can focus on. Oh, let's just get closer, see if that works. Oh, disappointing. The joys of a live stream. See, if I just looked this up online, I could have shared my screen, but I don't think that's quite as cool. Let's cover the camera up so it has to force to refocus. Anyway, the Johnny Cash, I'll describe it to you while it's focusing, is come on camera. It seems to go in different directions, and it comes like from one side to the other, almost like a diagonal check there. You going to focus? Cover it up. Wow, the joys of live streaming. So I've been live streaming for quite a while now, and nothing ever seems to work every time. What I might do is unplug. Oh, there we go. You can just about see there the checking here. Not quite all in one direction. And then the last one I'm going to show you is here, just again on the headstock. It shows really well here how deep the cracks are, and sometimes they're quite wide to let the color underneath seep through. So that's one thing we really need to emulate on the guitar, is that kind of color coming through. So it's not just a thin line that you're cutting in. And one way to do that, once we make the lines, is to stain color into it, or rub color into it, wax. I've got some Relic patina. Sometimes I use acrylic paint or inks, but sometimes you might find that it comes through naturally on your cut. Now let me show you what I'm going to use to cut with. I've got my Swan Moulton scalpels. They're the ones I prefer to use. I've got two sizes here. I don't know why, but for many years I've used two different size blades, and always have two different size blades on the go. I think I've probably got two of each of these in my workshop, and then a couple of other Swan Moulton ones which are kind of retractable. they're just great to have everywhere. I use them all the time. I've got loads of spare blades because I get through them so quickly. This is a size 25 and it's on a size 4 handle. And this one is a size 11 and it's on a size 3 handle. Now, when I say size, I mean type 25 and type 11. Size is the handle description. The type refers to the angle of the blade, the shape of the blade. You get curved ones, you get hooked ones, you get ones that are really straight. I like these ones. I can't tell you why I particularly like these. I think it's just because it's a nice straight edge. The actual edge size, if you look on them both, is almost the same, but this blade is bigger and I feel like I get more strength out of it. So this is what I'm going to mainly use. Now, my top tip for any type of relicing, but also if you're doing any type of refinishing or painting on your guitars, is to, if you have a guitar like this, which has a pick guard on it, is to do some tests in areas that are going to be hidden. So for me, the area that's going to be hidden is really this part here. And the first thing I want to test is how hard and how deep I need to go with my blade in order to get that mark in. So I'm just going to do a test here. What I'll do is I'll move the camera closer in a minute, but I'll just do my test. And I can see pushing quite hard gives the slight ridge to the cut that I want, the mark that I want. And if I go next to it a bit lighter, I get a thinner mark and the ridge isn't quite as big. And then I can hardly touch it. Hardly touching it, the mark's quite obvious still. I think my best option here is to start with these light marks and then go over and do some harder marks afterwards. So start really subtle. Like I said earlier on, the best thing to do is to really make sure that when you're doing this, you don't go overboard straight away. I like to start simple. Let me get that closer so to see if you can see it on the camera. Let's give it a moment to focus again. There we go. So there's the darker, deeper mark. You can just about see it here. Hopefully more will be more obvious when I've done more on it. But the main thing is you're going to follow my pattern, my technique that I do. And like I said, if you're watching this in the future, anytime after October 2025, there's going to be more images of this and the description of the technique in my book. The book, by the way, is coming out on Crowwood Press. Great company. So I'm going to just think about these marks to go from the top to the bottom. I'm not going to do the Iron Maiden style that goes this way because most guitars I see come from top to bottom. I'm going to go all the way from one side to the other. And I'm going to think about, although this is going to be under a pick guard, so I don't really need to see it so much, I'm going to think about the areas that are going to get the most wear on it. So that's probably going to be around here. So I might get a bit more intense with my marks around here and that maybe a few around this area. One thing to remember is this is only part of the relicing process, the checking, but I'm not going to be focused on the other bits at the moment. The other bits being the kind of wear, the bits that have worn down. Let's start here. Some of these lines might show up better on the camera. And if they don't, I'm going to move the camera close. And what you can see, I'm going right from the top all the way to the bottom. Let's move the camera closer, see what I can get for you. I can unhook this. This camera's on a tripod that I can open up like this. Hello. Sorry for the weird vertigo I might give you at the moment. Let's see if I can get it a bit better. Here we are. So you can see where the light's shining on it there. Bit of the cut. Let's do this again. This is when I'm pressing hard. You can see the cut come out. And this is the line I've just done from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to follow it and I'm going to go parallel with it. I'm not going to take my blade off till I get to the end. I'm not too worried about being perfect. Perfectly straight and parallel the whole time. So let's see if I move the camera around a bit. I can get some better shot angles in here. So you can see the line coming down. Oh, you can see the lines here coming down. So let's come in here. This time I'm going to do, I should angle it this way maybe for you. Sorry everyone, bear with me a minute. See lines coming down. This time I'm going to come down, but I'm going to start linking my lines up. That loop pattern that you sometimes see. So it comes down and then it just loops in. I'm going to do another thin one here that comes down. Loops in. Now it's looping in under the pick guard there. That doesn't matter too much. That's just for me to practice really. Let's see if I move this around a bit. You can see at the bottom here. So let's focus on some at the bottom. Again, this is going to be under the pick guard, so you won't see it so much. But let me come right from the top. All the way down. And I'm not pressing very hard here. Just about to see that. Let's come next to it with another thin one. It's quite close to it, and I'm going to deviate away towards the end. And then let's come up and get a loop in. Now what you can do at a later stage is you can then go over this with something like a cabinet scraper and start scraping away. And especially on bits where I'm going to press harder, what will happen is the lacquer, the cover will start to peel off. Now, because it's poly, it might not crack all the way to the bottom, to the raw wood. It might be like the top surface might peel a bit before the undersurface. And because this has got the sunburst finish on it, that means some of the later colour that went on is going to come off. So normally you'd start with the yellows, going with the orangey reds, then with the black at the edge. So if I was chipping here, some of the black might come off and reveal a bit of the red underneath. Not going to do that just yet. But while you can see these marks here, let me go in a bit harder. Now, I don't like it that hard, I think, because what it's done is it's chipped the paint, and it's chipped it in a way which doesn't, to me, look like a natural relic. It's hard to see on the camera here, but what I'm going to actually do is go back in with the blade here and make it neaten that crack up a bit. Now, I think the other problem with this crack that I've just made, see, I'm just scraping it there. Now it looks a bit more natural, but it's really bright white. If it was an old guitar that naturally cracked and relic like this, it's not going to be clean under there. It's going to have dirt and crap and crud going into it. So that's the thing we're going to have to add in a little bit. So let me just go here again, where because you can see it quite well on the camera. If I come in with my knife, I would like to go parallel with it, but not perfect. It doesn't have, see, I'm going in a bit closer. I'm coming out a bit. And actually, my knife just naturally, that line's naturally joined here to the line that was already there. So I'm going to stop. That one I pressed a bit lighter than the one next to it, so it's harder to see. In fact, on the camera, you might not even see it very well. Let's just do one hard one here. Not as hard as this one that cracked, though. There we go. Now, the thing that's going to start making it looking more realistic is these loops that join it up a bit. I don't need too many of them yet. You can see I've just rubbed it in, a bit of dust has gone in it, and it's made it a bit more visible. Now, let's come round here. I said I wanted to, at the top here, make the checks even more obvious, because that's maybe an area where it's had the most wear. By the way, I do live streams like this every Wednesday. Each week I'm going to have a different kind of topic. Next week I'm actually working on a 3D printed guitar. I'm going to be assembling it. The week after I'm going to be wiring that up. At some point I'm going to be sharpening all my chisels and blades. At another point I'm going to be working on a pedal board I've been working on for a while. And I'm sure I'll be doing lots of little techniques on this. I've got 2 Aria Pro basses from the 70s that I've been finishing off. So I'm going to have a week where I focus on the final stages of finishing them off. Anyway, let's get on here with this. But anyway, they're my normal live streams, but I also do a weekly live stream on a Monday just for my members of my channel. You can join the channel from as cheap as $1.99. And for the members of the channel, the live stream, it's a short one each week, but there's now 13 of them. that you can backtrack and catch up on. It's tours of my workshop. So sometimes it's going through the tools that I've got, and sometimes it's talking about my actual layout of my workshop and the choices I made in how to lay out the workshop. You can see here I'm trying to keep my lines coming in the same direction. This one I'm trying to keep parallel, but it doesn't matter if it seeps in a little bit closer. Let's make this one go all the way through to the bottom. Again, part this under a pick guard, so you're not going to see it. And let's do one of those lines that loops over here. Actually, I'm going to do a few more looping bits. I'm going to do one that just comes out and comes back in. Hopefully they're showing up okay on the camera. I've blocked the light a bit. And what would be great is if you're watching along now or in the future, just leave me a comment, say hi, tell me how you found my channel. Are you working on a relic yourself? Or, as most of the comments on my relic videos are, tell me why you don't like relics. Or even better, which some of the comments on my videos are, tell me why you don't like them, but you respect people that do like them and have a different point of view to you. I've got quite a few comments on videos where people have just said, I've really come round to it, or I don't like relics at all, but you've done a great job of it, making it look very realistic. But I equally get people saying, I don't understand these relics. What a waste. The only way to relic a guitar is to play it for 50 years. The amount of people I know that have had guitars for many, many years and played them and not actually had any relic appear on it. Hey, Owen's here. Oh, thanks, Owen. I'm glad you think I'm doing a good job. It's hard to get it on the camera. You know, when you're doing something subtle, it's hard to get that into a camera anyway, especially on a live stream. I'm going to come along to the side a bit. I think that the art here is, like I keep saying, not to go overboard. So my background is an artist. I teach art. I teach people, or used to teach art in different settings. And at the university I taught at, one of the key things I used to do is get students to stop and walk away and come back a bit later and look at what they've done. It's easy to stop. It's hard to go back on something when you've gone too far. So stopping and coming back is quite important. Right, look, I've got some of these lines in. I might go back to my book, have a quick look for a bit of inspiration. By the way, I got this book really cheap. And then I got all my money off because for some reason it's printed upside down, or it's been put in upside down. The cover is around the wrong way to the pages. Very strange. So I complained about it. Obviously, it was a group that got some, a company that had some reject books and they were trying to sell off. This is Brian Ray. Brian Ray was the guitarist for Paul McCartney. Look at this. I don't know how well it shows up on the camera because of the light. Again, let's move it around a bit. You can see the dark lines of this relic because it's a gold top. You get this kind of green finish where something's happened to the pigment in the paint. But you can see it's very straight lines. And look here, there's kind of extra ones coming out from under the control knobs. A bit like the cracking, the checking is starting wherever there is a hole. Now this hasn't got the holes for the knobs, but it has got holes for the screws and the bridge. So I might put some extra ones coming out then from the bridge here. Owen, who's in the live chat at the moment, was on the Guitar Builders Collective live stream today. He's on it. He's often in the comments, but he's on it live when he can be. We have a rotation of different builders and guests that come on. And we talk about different things, all ranges of things to do with guitar building, tools, workshops. We've talked about 3D printed guitars, talk about CNCing, we talk about guitar finishing. I've got a company that I use a lot. In fact, there's a link in this video description to their shop, Nitrolac. If you buy any of their products, I get a bit of a kickback. And in fact, I've got one of their products here to show you in a minute. And hopefully they're going to come on soon. partly to talk about their special varnish they make, lacquer that you can spray onto your guitars that helps accelerate this checking. So it happens naturally, but it doesn't take many, many years for it to happen. Now, as you notice, I'm just going to the edge of the guitar. Technically, the relicing would go around the sides as well. So it would go down the sides over the edge here. I'm not going to go that far with it today because, again, I just want to do a demo. And like I said, part of this is for photos for the book that I'm writing. And one of the things I need to do for the book is have lots and lots of examples of guitars. So some of the guitars like this one, I'm doing the relicing on the top, and then I'm going to totally refinish it and do something else on it because I can't afford to make that many guitars to have that many examples in the book, unfortunately. Do some of that occasional looping to the sides. Now, I think I'm going to do some extra heavy stuff just at the bottom here to finish off. And I'm going to stop. Just quickly say hi to the people in the chat. Oh, hey, Barry. Hi, Owen. Barry says, I'm with you on relicing as long as it's not been sold as original aged. Absolutely. So a lot of companies do relics. In fact, if you look at the Fender website, they do a range of relics. Basically, their range covers different types of relic. So more extreme, less extreme, subtle stuff. And a lot of that, I think, doesn't always look like real relics, but their custom shop stuff's much better. And one reason I think it doesn't look like a real aged relic is sometimes the surface is so smooth. So I used to say to people, when you've done all this relicing and we put the stain in it to really darken it, one thing you might want to do is put another coat of clear on the top to sort of protect it so it doesn't relic any further, which is a bit stupid. You're trying to emulate relicing, but then you've got to a point you like and you don't want it to be any more relicked. Why would you do that? Surely you'd want it to be as relict as possible and to keep relicing, but who knows? Sometimes you might get it exactly as you want it and not want any more. But the problem with putting that extra clear coat on is it gets rid of some of this texture. The real texture is what sort of feels like the real guitar, but the texture is the next stage to this. So look, let me move my camera back above and we'll talk about the texturing now. Here we go. So there's my guitar. You can see some of the marks in it where it's darker. I haven't gone everywhere. Like I said, I would every now and then stop. The clear problem with this, though, is it really should have some relicing that goes all the way over it, not just in these little sections. One way of relicing actual nitro finish is to apply cold and hot extremes to it quickly to cause it to crack. You do that by putting the whole guitar in the freezer and then applying heat to the whole guitar. Some people, and sometimes I do this as well, I spray cold air on it and then hot air on it, but that just relics sections at a time. And what you want to make it really feel natural is to all be relict. So I'm just going to quickly do a couple of bits up here. Barry, I'm not going to explain this to the viewers. They will have to go back and listen to today's episode, the episode 75 of the Guitar Builders Collective chat live stream, to know why I've been looking at fishnet stockings and trying to decide which ones to buy for the book. There we go. So look, I've got the texture here. I won't carry on doing all the stuff on it yet, but I think that this isn't quite natural because although I said, like, when we looked at those photos, the edges of the cracks do raise slightly, it does feel like a cut in it at the moment. So one thing I like to do is I've got these sanding pads. They're like foam pads with a finish on them. They're kind of odd because they never really say which grit they are. They just have a range. So this, I think, is 320 to 400 grit, but you could go over the surface of it very slightly and that just dulls it off a little bit. Again, one of the later stages you might do on the checking now is to really wear down the finish. I feel like doing the checking before you do that kind of wearing, where you might wear through the surface, is really important, because that way when you're wearing through the surface, it might break off lumps of the checking, which might add something really cool to the effect and make it feel a bit more natural. And then I've got things like this, which are cabinet scrapers, and I'm gonna you could just rub that lightly over the surface, and that will just take the sort of lip of some of the scratches. There we go. Now, the next stage to do is to darken these areas up. And I've got a cloth here. And I've got my Relic patina from Nitrolac. Now, sometimes I've done this with like a wood stain. Sometimes I've done it with acrylic paint. I actually prefer doing it with acrylic paint. Yes, Barry, that is the StuMax scraper. Brilliant stuff, StuMax scraper. I don't have any affiliate links for them, but they have a sale on at the moment. I like this patina, but I used to always use acrylic paint because then I could mix the paint up to the color I wanted. Although what I've really noticed is once you put it in, the color doesn't make much difference. It just darkens it. But let me show you how it works. So with the patina here, let's give it a shake. And I do this with any of the things I use: the ink, the acrylic paint, the patina stuff here. I should put a glove on, really. Is I work in sections on it. I find that if you do the whole guitar, then you run the risk of whatever you're putting on drying and then being quite hard to get off the surface. Because what you want is for it to rub into the gaps, really. So let me just take a bit onto the end of the rug. It's like a what's the consistency like? It's a bit thicker than custard. I can rub it in. It rubs in the cracks. And you can see, I'll do it on this white bit in a moment. And then you leave it on for a moment. And then you're going to rub it off. It makes it a bit more subtle. One thing I find as well with this, which is really good for this patina stuff, is if you've actually got a nitrocellulose finish that you're working on, that you've kind of done that cold heat treatment to it, sometimes there's cracks in it which are so fine you don't see them until you rub your patina on the top. Right, let's see how well it shows up on here. Might angle it at this angle. So I've got a really shiny guitar. That's not so helpful, is it? So the other thing I always do when I go through my stages of relicing is taking the shine off of most of the guitar, but leaving shine on certain areas that kind of get worn a lot. Sometimes a gloss sort of shine comes back to them, and other areas just get a bit matted in. So if I just actually angle that a bit more, you can see that really white bit here. Let's get the patina stuff. Gonna rub it in. Oh, and what I should have said is this is another good thing to test in that area under the pick guard where you're not going to see it. I'm enjoying the live chat there. I saw there's a Monty Python reference going on there. I saw a bit Monty Python the other day. I haven't seen for ages on in TikTok. I'm hoping TikTok's going to recommend more of it to me. It's always fun to revisit. So what's happened here is that crack is just darkened now. It looks a bit more natural. And all the cracks on it are a bit darker. Again, it's quite hard to see on this camera. The thing I think that ruins this, doesn't make it look realistic enough, is not that I haven't covered enough of it at the moment. It's the shine of the guitar. What I will be doing if I was carrying on with this further, is starting to work into it, do some more of that sanding in, scraping in, making little dents in it, pulling some of the surface off a bit, scuffing it up. But that's all for another video, or already in my other videos. This, like I said at the beginning, one of the things people often say in my Relic videos is, can we please see how you do the checking on a non-nitrocellulose guitar? Which is what I tried to do here. So great, thank you. So how's that? Where are we? We are, I can't see how many minutes we're 35 minutes in. So listen, hopefully that was an overview of how to do the checking on a guitar that's not a nitro finish. I will leave in the description to this video a link to my Relic playlist, which includes videos of my Relic guitars and demos of them, but also all the videos I've got on how to relic a guitar. I've got videos on how to do a complete relic, how to focus just on the headstock, how to focus on different bits of the body, how to do that hot and cold finish now on this one, how to do it on a nitro finish. Hopefully it covers everything you need if you want to relic a guitar. Also the aging of the hardware. My current favorite process is with ferric chloride. Fantastic. And thank you for those of you that joined in with the chat, Barry and Owen. If there's anybody else that's watching in the future, let me know in the comments. It's always nice to hear from people that are watching. I respond to all the comments, so I'll always say hi back. Let me know if you're working on a relic yourself. If you are, tag me on social media. I'm on all the social medias under Devil and Sons. I love seeing what people have done, especially if in some way I've influenced you or helped you or given you some tips. So I will say good night there. Thank you once again, and see you next Wednesday for the next live stream, which is when I'm making the 3D guitars. See you on Monday if you're a member on the live stream when I'm showing you around my workshop, and see you next Thursday in the Guitar Builders Collective chat live stream, where next Thursday, or actually live next week's on a Wednesday. It's not very helpful. We're talking to Yard Guitars, who do a lot of CNC work. Fantastic, very cool CNC work. All right, take care.